Penetration testing, commonly known as pen testing, is a critical cybersecurity practice that organizations use to protect themselves from real threats. At its core, penetration testing is a simulated cyber attack performed on a computer system, network, or web application. Unlike real attacks, this is conducted by authorized security professionals. The primary purpose of penetration testing is to identify vulnerabilities that malicious attackers could potentially exploit. Think of it as a friendly hack designed to find weaknesses before the bad guys do. Penetration testing follows a structured life cycle with multiple phases. Each phase serves a specific purpose in comprehensively evaluating an organization's security posture. This proactive approach is crucial for organizations because it allows them to identify and fix security weaknesses before they can be exploited by real attackers. It's much better to find problems during a controlled test than during an actual breach. Penetration testing is also known as ethical hacking, and it follows specific phases to ensure thorough and systematic security evaluation. These phases guide security professionals through a comprehensive assessment process. In summary, penetration testing is an essential cybersecurity practice that helps organizations stay one step ahead of cybercriminals. By simulating real attacks in a controlled environment, companies can identify and fix vulnerabilities before they become serious security threats. Ethical hacking involves using the same techniques as malicious hackers, but with a crucial difference. It's done legally and ethically to improve an organization's security posture. The key distinction is authorization and intent. Ethical hackers have explicit permission to test systems, while malicious hackers operate without consent and often with harmful intentions. Ethical hackers are also known as penetration testers. While these terms are often used interchangeably, there are some subtle differences in scope and methodology. The foundation of ethical hacking is proper authorization. Organizations must provide written permission before any testing begins, establishing clear boundaries and rules of engagement. The ultimate goal of ethical hacking is to identify vulnerabilities and provide actionable recommendations. This follows a systematic remediation process. Ethical hackers follow a structured methodology with distinct phases, each designed to systematically uncover security weaknesses while maintaining professionalism and legal compliance. In summary, ethical hacking is a legitimate cybersecurity practice that uses offensive techniques for defensive purposes. It requires proper authorization, follows established methodologies, and aims to strengthen an organization's security posture through systematic vulnerability identification and remediation guidance. Penetration testing serves three fundamental goals that work together to strengthen an organization's cybersecurity posture. The first goal is to identify vulnerabilities. This involves systematically discovering weaknesses in systems, networks, and applications that could be exploited by malicious actors. The second goal is to evaluate the risks associated with discovered vulnerabilities. This means assessing the potential impact and likelihood of exploitation to prioritize security efforts. The third goal is to suggest improvements and provide actionable recommendations. This involves creating specific, implementable solutions to mitigate the identified risks and strengthen security. Understanding these goals helps distinguish penetration testing from other security activities like vulnerability assessments. While both are important, they serve different purposes in a comprehensive security strategy. These penetration testing goals align with broader cybersecurity frameworks that organizations use to manage their overall security posture. The identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover functions all benefit from effective penetration testing. By achieving these three core goals, penetration testing provides organizations with a clear understanding of their security weaknesses, the risks they face, and concrete steps to improve their defensive capabilities. Black box testing is a fundamental approach in penetration testing, where the security professional operates with zero knowledge of the internal system architecture, just like a real external attacker would. The term black box comes from the concept that the system being tested is completely opaque to the tester. They can see inputs going in and outputs coming out, but have no visibility into the internal workings. This testing approach simulates a real-world attack scenario where a malicious hacker attempts to breach your systems from the outside with no insider knowledge or privileged access. Black box testers must rely entirely on publicly available information and their technical skills to discover vulnerabilities. This includes gathering intelligence from websites, social media, public databases, and network reconnaissance. There are several specialized techniques within black box testing, each designed to uncover different types of vulnerabilities through systematic approaches like boundary value analysis, fuzz testing, and equivalence partitioning. Black box penetration testing typically follows 5 key stages: reconnaissance to gather initial intelligence, scanning and enumeration to map the attack surface, vulnerability discovery to identify weaknesses, exploitation to gain access, and privilege escalation to expand control within the system. The key advantage of black box testing is its realistic simulation of external threats. However, it can be time-consuming since testers must discover everything from scratch, and some internal vulnerabilities may remain hidden without insider knowledge. White box testing, also known as clear box testing, is a comprehensive security testing approach that provides testers with complete visibility into the system they're examining. Unlike other testing methods, white box testing gives testers full access to the source code, system credentials, and complete architectural documentation. This transparency allows testers to examine the internal workings of applications and systems, making it fundamentally different from black box testing approaches. The key characteristics of white box testing include access to source code, system credentials, network diagrams, and detailed documentation of the target environment. Here's a practical example of white box testing in action. This flowchart shows how testers can examine the internal logic of a funds transfer system, understanding each decision point and process flow. The benefits of white box testing are significant. It enables more thorough vulnerability assessment, efficient testing processes, and direct code analysis to identify potential security weaknesses. White box testing follows a continuous vulnerability management cycle, where identified weaknesses are analyzed, assessed for risk, and remediated, creating an ongoing process of security improvement. This comprehensive approach makes white box testing an essential tool for organizations seeking to thoroughly understand and secure their systems from the inside out. Penetration testing can be conducted from 2 primary perspectives: internal testing and external testing. Each approach simulates different attack scenarios and provides unique insights into an organization's security posture. This network diagram illustrates both testing approaches. The red arrows show external penetration testing attempts from outside the network, while the internal components represent the scope of internal testing. Internal testing simulates an attack that originates from within the organization's network. This type of testing assumes the attacker has already gained some level of access to the internal systems. Internal testing helps identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited by malicious insiders, such as disgruntled employees, or by external attackers who have already compromised an employee's credentials. Now let's examine external testing, which takes a completely different approach by simulating attacks from outside the organization's network perimeter. External testing targets internet-facing systems and services, simulating how a real-world external attacker would attempt to breach the organization's defenses from the outside. External testing focuses on publicly accessible systems such as web servers, email servers, and other services exposed to the internet. This approach mimics the perspective of an external hacker with no prior access. This infrastructure diagram shows the complexity of modern networks that both internal and external testing must evaluate. Internal testing can access all these components directly, while external testing must work through the perimeter defenses. Both testing approaches are essential for comprehensive security assessment. Internal testing reveals what damage could be done from within, while external testing shows how well your perimeter defenses protect against outside threats. Organizations typically conduct both types of testing to get a complete picture of their security posture and ensure comprehensive protection against all potential attack vectors. Reconnaissance is the critical first phase of penetration testing. Think of it as detective work, gathering intelligence about your target before taking any action. To understand where reconnaissance fits, let's look at the complete penetration testing process. Reconnaissance is the foundation that makes all other phases possible. Reconnaissance involves systematically gathering information about the target system, network, or organization. This intelligence gathering is essential for identifying potential attack vectors. There are two main approaches to reconnaissance: active and passive. Each has distinct characteristics and use cases in penetration testing. During reconnaissance, penetration testers gather various types of information. This includes technical details like IP addresses and domain names, as well as human intelligence about employees and organizational structure. Effective reconnaissance requires patience and thoroughness. The more information gathered in this phase, the more targeted and successful the subsequent phases of penetration testing will be. The scanning phase is where penetration testers actively probe the target network to identify live hosts, open ports, running services, and potential vulnerabilities. This phase builds upon the information gathered during reconnaissance. Network scanning involves systematically probing IP addresses to discover which hosts are alive and what services they're running. This is typically done using tools like Nmap, which can perform various types of scans. Here we see Nmap, the graphical interface for Nmap, displaying a network topology. The central local host is connected to various discovered IP addresses, each represented by colored indicators showing their status and accessibility. Port scanning sends packets to specific ports on target hosts to determine which ports are open, closed, or filtered. Common ports like 22 for SSH, 80 for HTTP, and 443 for HTTPS are typically scanned first. Vulnerability scanning goes beyond port scanning to identify specific security weaknesses in the discovered services. These scanners compare found services against databases of known vulnerabilities. This Security Center report demonstrates the output of vulnerability scanning. It shows a comprehensive list of hosts with their vulnerability counts, risk scores, and detailed breakdowns of security issues found on each system. Scanning employs various techniques including TCP SYN scans for stealthy port discovery, UDP scans for connectionless services, service detection to identify specific software versions, and OS fingerprinting to determine target operating systems. The scanning phase produces a wealth of information including live host addresses, open ports and services, software versions, and identified vulnerabilities. This data forms the foundation for the next phase, exploitation. With comprehensive scanning complete, penetration testers now have the intelligence needed to move into the exploitation phase, where they will attempt to leverage the discovered vulnerabilities. The exploitation phase is where penetration testers move from identifying vulnerabilities to actually using them. This is the critical moment where theoretical weaknesses become real security breaches. Exploitation comes after reconnaissance and scanning in the penetration testing methodology. Once vulnerabilities are identified, the tester attempts to exploit them to gain unauthorized access to systems. Exploitation involves actively attacking the vulnerabilities discovered during scanning. Testers use specialized tools and frameworks to attempt gaining system access and demonstrate the real-world impact of security weaknesses. Metasploit is the industry-standard exploitation framework used by penetration testers worldwide. It contains thousands of exploits, automates the exploitation process, and provides extensive post-exploitation capabilities. Penetration testers exploit various attack vectors during the exploitation phase. These include software vulnerabilities, compromised credentials, weak passwords, phishing attacks, and many others. Each vector represents a different pathway into the target system. The exploitation process follows a systematic approach. First, testers select an appropriate exploit based on the identified vulnerability. Then they configure the target parameters, launch the attack, and attempt to gain access to the system. The primary goals of exploitation are to prove the impact of vulnerabilities, gain control of target systems, and assess the potential risk and damage scope. This phase transforms theoretical security issues into concrete evidence of system compromise. Exploitation is the critical phase that turns theoretical vulnerabilities into real security breaches. It demonstrates the actual risk to organizations and provides concrete evidence that drives effective remediation efforts. Post-exploitation is the critical phase that occurs after successfully gaining initial access to a target system. This phase focuses on maintaining that access, escalating privileges, and demonstrating the full potential impact of the compromise. Looking at the complete penetration testing process, post-exploitation comes after the initial exploitation phase. It's a crucial step that many organizations overlook when assessing their security posture. Post-exploitation involves 5 key activities. First, maintaining access ensures the penetration tester can return to the compromised system. Second, privilege escalation attempts to gain higher-level permissions. Third, data gathering involves collecting sensitive information to demonstrate what an attacker could access. Fourth, lateral movement explores how an attacker could spread to other systems on the network. Finally, impact demonstration shows the organization the full potential damage that could result from the compromise, helping them understand the true risk to their business. Lateral movement is a critical aspect of post-exploitation. Once an attacker compromises one system, they can use it as a stepping stone to access other systems on the network, potentially reaching high-value targets like database servers or domain controllers. Privilege escalation follows a systematic approach. Penetration testers identify the current privilege level, search for vulnerabilities that could grant higher permissions, and carefully exploit these weaknesses to gain administrative or root access. During data gathering, penetration testers identify and document sensitive information that could be accessed by an attacker. This includes user credentials, financial data, customer information, and proprietary business secrets. The ultimate goal of post-exploitation is to demonstrate the real business impact of a security breach. This includes showing how an attacker could compromise the entire network, access sensitive data, deploy ransomware, cause regulatory violations, and damage the organization's reputation and finances. Post-exploitation provides organizations with a clear understanding of their true security posture and the potential consequences of a successful cyber attack. This knowledge is essential for making informed decisions about security investments and risk management strategies. The reporting phase is the final and most critical step in penetration testing. This is where all findings are documented, analyzed, and presented to help organizations improve their security posture. Effective reporting transforms technical findings into business value. It communicates security risks to stakeholders, provides clear remediation guidance, and creates documentation for compliance and future reference. A comprehensive penetration testing report follows a structured format. It begins with an executive summary for management, includes methodology and scope details, documents all vulnerabilities found, assesses their risk levels, and provides detailed remediation guidance. The executive summary is crucial as it translates technical findings into business language that executives and decision-makers can understand and act upon. Each vulnerability must be documented with detailed information, including its severity level. The severity classification helps organizations prioritize their remediation efforts based on risk and potential impact. Critical vulnerabilities require immediate attention as they pose the highest risk to the organization. These often include missing security patches, default credentials, or exposed sensitive data. The remediation process follows a systematic approach. After finding vulnerabilities, they must be prioritized based on risk assessment. Organizations then implement fixes systematically and monitor to ensure the remediation is effective and doesn't introduce new issues. Effective penetration testing reports drive meaningful security improvements. They provide organizations with stronger defenses, reduced risk exposure, and improved compliance posture. The reporting phase transforms technical testing into actionable business intelligence. Remember, a penetration test is only as valuable as its report. The reporting phase ensures that security investments translate into real improvements in the organization's overall security posture. 2 essential tools form the backbone of most penetration testing engagements: Nmap for network discovery and Burp Suite for web application testing. Nmap, short for Network Mapper, is the most widely used network discovery and security auditing tool. It sends specially crafted packets to target hosts, and analyzes their responses to determine what services are running. Nmap can visualize network topology through its graphical interface called Nmap. This shows how devices are connected and what services each host is running, giving penetration testers a clear map of their target network. Burp Suite is the industry standard for web application security testing. It acts as a proxy between your browser and the target application, allowing you to intercept, analyze, and modify all HTTP traffic. Burp Suite sits between the client and server, intercepting all communication. This allows penetration testers to modify requests, test for injection attacks, and identify security flaws that automated scanners might miss. Together, these tools provide comprehensive security assessment capabilities. Nmap maps the network infrastructure and identifies potential entry points, while Burp Suite thoroughly tests web applications for vulnerabilities. These tools are essential in every penetration tester's toolkit. Mastering Nmap and Burp Suite provides the foundation for identifying vulnerabilities and assessing the security posture of both network infrastructure and web applications. SQL injection is one of the most common and dangerous web application vulnerabilities. It occurs when attackers inject malicious SQL code into input fields to manipulate database queries. SQL injection happens when user input is not properly validated or sanitized before being used in database queries. This allows attackers to insert their own SQL commands. Here we see how a typical SQL injection attack unfolds. Organized crime or malicious actors inject code into vulnerable websites, which can redirect users to malicious sites or exploit unpatched vulnerabilities. This example shows a hacker injecting malicious SQL code into a vulnerable banking website. By entering special characters and SQL commands in the username field, the attacker bypasses authentication and gains unauthorized access to the bank account. SQL injection attacks can have severe consequences, including bypassing authentication systems, accessing sensitive data, modifying or deleting database records, and even executing arbitrary commands on the server. The best defense against SQL injection is using parameterized queries or prepared statements. This code example shows secure database connection practices using PDO with parameterized queries that separate SQL code from user data. Proper input validation is crucial for preventing SQL injection. This form shows validation in action, checking that email addresses are properly formatted and contain no malicious content. Always validate inputs on the server side, not just the client side. Remember, SQL injection is preventable through proper coding practices. Always use parameterized queries, validate all inputs, and follow the principle of least privilege when designing database access. Cross-site scripting, commonly known as XSS, is one of the most prevalent web application vulnerabilities that penetration testers encounter. Understanding how XSS works is crucial for both attackers and defenders in cybersecurity. XSS occurs when an attacker successfully injects malicious JavaScript or other client-side scripts into a web application. These scripts then execute in the browsers of unsuspecting users who visit the compromised pages. Here we can see the typical flow of an XSS attack. The attacker first injects malicious script into the website's database. When a victim requests content from the website, the malicious script is included in the response and executes in their browser. This diagram shows the complete attack chain. The perpetrator exploits a website vulnerability to inject malicious script. When users visit the site, the script steals their session cookies and sends them back to the attacker, potentially compromising their accounts. XSS attacks can accomplish several malicious objectives. Attackers can steal session cookies to hijack user accounts, redirect victims to phishing sites, deface web pages, or even capture sensitive information like passwords and credit card numbers. This diagram illustrates how output encoding protects against XSS attacks. Before encoding, malicious scripts can target web applications. The encoding process transforms these threats into harmless data that browsers display as text rather than executing as code. There are three primary defenses against XSS attacks. Input validation ensures all user data is properly checked and sanitized. Output encoding converts potentially dangerous characters into safe HTML entities. Content security policy headers restrict where scripts can be loaded from, providing an additional layer of protection. The fundamental principle in preventing XSS is to never trust user input. Always validate, sanitize, and encode data before processing or displaying it. This defense-in-depth approach significantly reduces the risk of successful XSS attacks. Privilege escalation is one of the most critical attack techniques in cybersecurity. It's the process by which an attacker gains higher access rights than originally intended on a system. At its core, privilege escalation involves exploiting system vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, or design flaws to gain unauthorized access to higher-level privileges than what was initially granted. There are two main types of privilege escalation attacks. This diagram shows a typical scenario where an attacker account attempts to gain access to root or administrative privileges. Horizontal privilege escalation involves moving laterally between user accounts that have the same privilege level, such as from one employee account to another. Vertical privilege escalation is more dangerous, involving an increase in privileges from a standard user to administrative or root access. Attackers use several common techniques for privilege escalation. These include exploiting software vulnerabilities and system misconfigurations, abusing weak file permissions and access controls, stealing user credentials through various attack methods, and using social engineering to gain trusted access to systems. Successful privilege escalation can be devastating for organizations. It gives attackers complete control over systems, allowing them to access sensitive data, install malware and backdoors, steal credentials, and move laterally across networks to compromise additional systems. Organizations can defend against privilege escalation through several key strategies. These include keeping all systems and software updated with the latest security patches, implementing the principle of least privilege to limit user access rights, and conducting regular security monitoring and access auditing to detect suspicious activities. Understanding privilege escalation techniques is crucial for both penetration testers and security professionals. By knowing how these attacks work, organizations can better protect their systems and implement effective security controls. Rules of engagement, or ROE, form the critical foundation for any penetration testing engagement. This document defines exactly what can and cannot be done during a pen test. The Rules of Engagement is a formal document that serves as a contract between the penetration tester and the client. It establishes clear boundaries for what systems can be tested, what methods can be used, and what actions are strictly forbidden. The Rules of Engagement document must address several critical components. These include defining the scope of testing, establishing communication protocols, and setting clear boundaries for what actions are permitted during the engagement. One of the most critical aspects of the Rules of Engagement is clearly defining what systems are in scope versus out of scope. In-scope systems are fair game for testing, while out-of-scope systems must never be touched during the engagement. The Rules of Engagement must clearly specify which testing methods are permitted and which are strictly prohibited. This prevents accidental damage to systems and ensures the test stays within legal and ethical boundaries. Perhaps most importantly, the Rules of Engagement provides crucial legal protection for both the penetration tester and the client. It establishes written authorization for activities that would otherwise be considered illegal and creates a framework for accountability throughout the engagement. Understanding rules of engagement is essential for any penetration tester. These concepts form the foundation of ethical and legal penetration testing practices. Remember, rules of engagement are not optional documentation. They are the essential foundation that transforms potentially illegal activities into legitimate security testing, ensuring that penetration testing remains both ethical and effective. In cybersecurity, organizations use specialized teams to test and improve their defenses through simulated attacks and defensive strategies. Two specialized teams work together in this process: the red team and the blue team. Each has a distinct role in improving organizational security. The red team acts as simulated attackers, while the blue team serves as the defenders. This creates a realistic testing environment. Red teaming involves simulating real-world cyber attacks against an organization. The red team acts as adversaries, using the same tools and techniques that actual hackers would employ. Blue teaming focuses on defense and incident response. The blue team monitors systems, detects threats, and implements security measures to protect against attacks. The relationship between red and blue teams is inherently adversarial, like a competitive match. This competition drives both teams to improve their skills and techniques. Red team versus blue team exercises provide numerous benefits. They identify real security weaknesses, improve incident response capabilities, and provide realistic assessments of an organization's security posture. Together, red and blue teams create a comprehensive security testing environment that goes beyond traditional vulnerability assessments, providing organizations with realistic insights into their security readiness. In the rapidly evolving world of cybersecurity, staying updated is not just important for penetration testers, it's absolutely critical for success and effectiveness. The cybersecurity landscape changes at breakneck speed. New vulnerabilities are discovered every day, attack techniques constantly evolve, and threat actors continuously adapt their strategies to bypass security measures. Penetration testers must tap into multiple information sources. Security blogs like Krebs on Security provide real-world attack analysis. Threat intelligence feeds from MITRE and CISA offer structured data about emerging threats and attack patterns. CVE databases are essential for tracking vulnerabilities. The National Vulnerability Database provides detailed information about security flaws, including severity scores, affected software, and available patches. Pen testers must monitor these databases to understand which vulnerabilities to prioritize in their testing. Hands-on practice is crucial for maintaining sharp skills. Platforms like Hack the Box offer advanced challenges that simulate real-world scenarios, while Try Hack Me provides beginner-friendly labs. These legal environments allow pen testers to experiment with new techniques safely and learn from the cybersecurity community. Successful penetration testers adopt a continuous learning mindset. They set aside time daily for security research, actively participate in cybersecurity communities, attend conferences to learn from experts, and constantly practice new techniques in safe lab environments. Remember, in cybersecurity, the moment you stop learning is the moment you start falling behind. The threat landscape evolves constantly, and your skills must evolve with it to remain an effective penetration tester.